Candace Parker just dropped a truth bomb that every Caitlin Clark supporter has been shouting from the rooftops. It is the exact reality the WNBA gatekeepers tried to ignore. The league office, particularly the commissioner, really needs to wake up and pay close attention. We all prayed this new season would bring a positive vibe toward Caitlin and her followers, but things have actually taken a turn for the worse. The envy has grown louder, the bitterness has intensified, and those blatant double standards are impossible to miss. Luckily, WNBA royalty Candace Parker just entered the chat. She made the critics look absolutely ridiculous, using nothing but simple, undeniable facts. Her words cut through the chaos, bringing much-needed clarity to the entire drama. Perhaps this will finally force the league to take a long, hard look in the mirror. If this season proved anything, it is that as Caitlin dominates, the league responds with increasingly loud and self-sabotaging behavior. Let us dive into Candace's statement because it might be the most composed yet devastating blow dealt to the Caitlin Clark trolls and the old guard. Quick favor first, smash that like button. Each one counts as a box of tissues for the disgruntled critics out there. They will definitely need them after hearing Candace's take. Also, do not forget to subscribe for constant updates on Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Why is Candace choosing this moment to speak out? And what makes her opinion so heavyweight? Here is the deal. Outside of legends like LeBron James or Steph Curry, she is arguably the most recognizable basketball star currently in America. No doubt about it. The WNBA is witnessing an explosion in popularity right now that we have never seen before. Everyone knows the reason, even if some refuse to admit it. It is the Caitlin Clark effect, the biggest open secret in professional sports. She is not just a popular WNBA star. She is likely the most famous athlete in the entire country. Full stop. Look at the data from the previous year. Television ratings went through the roof. Ticket demand skyrocketed, and jerseys were flying off the shelves instantly. Every single metric confirmed one thing: Caitlin moves the needle like nobody else. This season, she is already smashing those previous records even harder. We are talking packed stadiums and viewership numbers that are totally off the charts. The momentum is not slowing down one bit. It is actually intensifying. Her second highest viewing figures are what most leagues would consider an incredible season average. Still, she hit the highest peak viewership for any game ever broadcast on CBS. Fans are flocking to watch the Fever in unprecedented numbers. It all kicked off with 1.3 million people tuning in just for a preseason scrimmage against Brazil. Think about that for a second. An exhibition match pulled in numbers that most regular season games could only dream of. Then came the actual opener. 2.7 million viewers on average for the game against the Sky, the highest WNBA regular season rating in 25 years. Recently, over 3.3 million people watched her take on the Liberty. But the situation shifted in a heartbeat. Since Caitlin Clark is sidelined with an injury, the market for the Fever and Sky matchup has completely bottomed out. Ticket prices for Fever matchups without Caitlin on the court have crashed by 300%. Fever fans are still showing up in the TV ratings. I will touch on that shortly, but the rest of the league is struggling to keep pace. This should serve as a massive alarm for players, coaches, and the executives running the show. Caitlin Clark is on track to pull in over $1 billion for the WNBA this season alone. That leads to a scary realization. This league is just one major Caitlin Clark injury away from losing every ounce of its current buzz. So, those massive paydays Angel Reese expects and the contract leverage Napheesa Collier is banking on. You might think you hold the cards, but without Caitlin, that house of cards collapses. Yet, the league keeps tripping over its own feet. Instead of leaning into the obvious source of their success, they perform mental gymnastics to credit anything else. They ignore the wins and keep steering the narrative toward anything except what is happening on the hardwood. As I mentioned before, the loudest critics are the ones obsessed with pushing divisive social agendas. I will not name names, but I am seeing it everywhere among WNBA analysts and coaching staffs. There is a deep-seated bitterness toward Caitlin Clark, and the logic behind it is completely baffling. It defies reason to resent the very person doing so much to elevate the entire league. We are only a few matches in, and the way Caitlin and her fanbase have been treated is already an absolute embarrassment. The drama started on day one. Following the Sky opener, the league started a probe into supposed toxic comments. But by then, the negative narrative had already taken root. Instead of honoring a stellar professional debut and a milestone moment for women's sports, the headlines were stolen by controversy. It was not about the game. It became about the noise. Once again, Caitlin and her supporters were sucked into a mess that had zero to do with basketball. By validating these false claims, instead of dismissing them as baseless internet gossip, the league gave life to a total lie. There was absolutely no substance to any of those accusations. A toxic narrative began to brew, painting Indianapolis as a danger zone and branding Caitlin Clark's supporters as a pack of haters. People were literally screaming for the All-Star Showcase to be yanked right out of the city. There was even a loud push to ban Dave Portnoy from every arena just for giving Angel Reese a hard time. Meanwhile, the front office has played the quiet game regarding the venom being spat at Caitlin and the Fever. No backup, no defense, just dead air. The line hasn't just been crossed, it's been obliterated. The vitriol aimed at those Fever players, Caitlin especially, has nothing to do with hoops anymore. This wasn't about missed shots or her fame. It was pure malice and flat-out intimidation. The verbal sewage being dumped on them, and specifically on Kelsey Mitchell, is beyond belief. What they're doing to Natasha Howard is straight up insane. People are actually circling her face in photos like she's a target. Messages are saying it is on site when they see her. We aren't talking about mean tweets. We're talking about genuine threats of violence. These are calculated personal strikes that you'd think the league would at least have the spine to denounce, especially for an organization that never stops bragging about its stand against hate and for inclusion. But instead, all we got was radio silence, no support, and the fire just spread. Now, critics on social media are claiming Caitlin is using her coach's infant as a PR tool. Caitlin Clark is being bombarded with some of the most stomach-turning, racist, and twisted comments imaginable. The well of resentment isn't just full, it's overflowing onto everyone in its path. Kathy Engelbert, where's that zero tolerance for hate energy now? Nowhere to be found. They are literally coming for her because she held a baby. That's how bottom barrel the conversation has become. It's gone from hoops to conspiracy, and the league is still mute. The animosity toward Caitlin and her crowd hasn't faded one bit. If anything, the heat has turned up. Even with the massive crowds and the broken records, there's still this wall of refusal to admit she's the spark. And that attitude trickles down directly from the very top of the ladder. Kathy Engelbert wrote this massive, winding article where she basically gives herself a standing ovation for the WNBA finally going mainstream. The commissioner even penned a piece for the Harvard Business Review where she bent over backward to hand out trophies to everyone except the person actually moving the needle. She gave shout-outs to the coaching staff, the veterans, the marketing gurus, and the front office masterminds. Everyone got a gold star, but Caitlin Clark's name was almost nowhere to be seen. To the casual fan or the person just tuning in, this explosion might look like some lucky, overnight success story driven by a handful of talented college stars hitting the pro scene. But the claim is that they couldn't have seized the moment without years of grinding and laying the groundwork. Years of prep, they say, even if it looks like a lightning strike to everyone else. She watered down the Clark effect more than a cheap, ice-melted fountain soda. In that piece, Engelbert tossed Caitlin into a pile with Angel Reese and Cameron Brink, noting that as this rookie class arrived, viewership skyrocketed to an average of 1.2 million, a 170% jump. But let's be real. You know the truth, I know the truth, and everyone else does too. It was the games where Caitlin took the floor that were pulling those 1.2 million eyes. But since the gatekeepers can't stomach the idea of her getting all the flowers, they're frantically handing out bouquets to anyone else nearby. They just can't process it. Their brains simply refuse to accept the reality of the situation. They can't just swallow their pride and admit this kid is a bigger draw than they are or more popular than the players they've been trying to push. Being jealous is just being human. But this is different. There's this desperate need to tear Caitlyn down just so they can feel like they're standing tall. In far too many circles, people immediately play the race card to explain away why she's capturing the world's attention, as if it has zero to do with the fact that she demolished 62 league records and earned a spot as a first-team All-Star, or that she finished fourth in the MVP race and carried a struggling team into the postseason in her very first year. It's bizarre because, like it or not, what Caitlyn brings to the hardwood is lifting the tide for every boat. When the lights find her, they illuminate the entire league. When these teams play in front of 15 to 20,000 screaming fans, they're getting eyeballs they never had before. It's a golden chance for fans to discover every single athlete on that court, to find new players to root for, and other teams to obsess over across the whole WNBA. We've even had the icons of the game chime in the ones who actually built this house and know exactly what's on the line. Take Lisa Leslie, a legendary Hall of Famer and one of the most powerful voices the sport has ever known. She shattered the silence by calling out the bitter vibes surrounding the league's new golden girl. It boils down to business and cold hard cash. Ignoring the number 22 revolution is just plain denial. We can't keep playing blind to reality. This seismic shift she triggered is a massive, undeniable phenomenon. Name another time franchises had to scramble for massive stadiums just to host one player. You can't. If global attention is finally landing on us because of her, why on earth are people catching feelings? Sure, she is hogging the primetime slots, but the bitterness lingers. It was time for a reality check. Only a true icon could deliver that wake-up call, someone who remembers when the spotlight was just a flicker. Enter the legendary Candace Parker. 3 rings, 2 MVP trophies, and 2 gold medals around her neck. We are talking about a titan of the hardwood, a brilliant strategist with an unmatched legacy in this sport. This week, she sat across from the loudest voice in sports to say what the cowards would not dare. She tackled the awkward truth head-on. For years, countless women poured their souls into this league without fanfare. These veterans did the heavy lifting for the sport, yet they felt ghosted by the sudden surge of mainstream love. Give the man his flowers. The host has not flinched once when pointing out the league's petty side. He is the rare big media figure calling out the green-eyed monster by name. Fans see it, we all do. During the broadcast, he dropped a truth bomb on a frustrated star who could not handle the spotlight shift. She was venting about the television schedule favoring the rookie, forgetting how a guy named Michael once changed everything. When his airness arrived, he was not stacking championships yet, but his magnetism was simply off the charts. The league bet the farm on his star power. Having a blueprint like that should be celebrated, not criticized. If this marketing playbook has already saved a league before, why treat it like a betrayal of the game now? This was not some softball sit-down. There were no rehearsed lines or sugary distractions in that studio. He went for the jugular, asking about the simmering resentment boiling over within the professional ranks. He pushed her to reveal if the league is actually moving past the pettiness to finally level up. What followed was pure class, a sharp, logical breakdown that cut through all the noise. It was the exact validation every supporter needed. It is wild how often these questions pop up. People keep poking me, trying to find a spark of bitterness about how big the game is getting. My mission was simple: leave the floor better than I found it. Did my predecessors hate me for succeeding? Hardly. She is out there mentoring the youth and cheering from the front row for the next generation's phenoms. That is my stance too. I am backing the new blood and every woman wearing a jersey today. Her logic was a work of art, a masterclass in perspective, leaving the haters with nowhere to hide. Let that sink in. A legend like her is constantly being interrogated about her supposed grudge. That single admission exposes just how deep the envy runs within the professional basketball circles. Imagine asking a Hall of Famer if she is pressed about a newcomer. It is insulting, yet it is the current climate. She hit back with the gold standard response, the only one that truly matters for the future of the sport. It is not about resenting the newcomer, it is about prepping the stage so the next icon can thrive. You do not need to trash the rookie's talent or act like this explosion of interest is just some fluke. Take pride in the foundation you laid, then cheer her on because a rising tide lifts every single boat. She did not have to scream it to make it clear. Her message was a direct shot at the toxic narrative. She took aim at the divisive chatter and the cultural talking points trying to sabotage the sport's biggest moment. I remember the hype when legends clashed on the court and emotions flared. That is what draws people in. But my focus remains on the play between the whistles. That is where the real magic happens. Nowadays, everyone with a smartphone thinks they are a critic with a direct line to the league. My advice? Block out the static and focus on the hoops. That is where growth lives. When the game is the main character again, we can finally achieve the greatness we have been chasing. Take notes, trolls. Stop the divisive talk because these manufactured controversies are only poisoning the well. They build nothing. They just make the league look like it is cannibalizing itself instead of celebrating its massive victory. It's tragic how they can't just embrace this peak era without dragging in some ugly social battle. People are desperate to frame the whole situation as some tired, old racial divide. That poisonous vibe is now infecting folks who haven't even tuned in for a single tip-off. Suddenly, everyone acts like a die-hard expert just because they've picked a side in the identity politics. Seriously, stop the madness. You claim you want expansion, yet insist on strictly hoops talk. Except, nobody is actually focusing on the court. It's baffling. Look, the rookie simply plays the game. She delivers pure magic every night, feeding the crowd's hunger for elite competition. Her impact has sparked an explosion of interest unlike anything this organization has witnessed. Race was never her motivation. She hasn't shown a shred of malice or shade toward her peers. Truthfully, she's been pure class, always honoring the icons who built the foundations she stands on. She uplifts her squad, respects her rivals, and remains incredibly grounded through all the noise. Zero egos, zero insults. She's elevating the whole landscape. Just hear what a legend like Lisa Leslie noted. Leslie adores that attitude. She isn't the type to demand the spotlight solely for herself. She empowers her teammates despite all the hype. This perspective isn't from some random bystander. A true pioneer spoke those words. And now, Candace Parker is singing the exact same tune. Better the sport for the next generation so newcomers like number 22 can thrive just as she once did. That's the cycle. Larry and Magic paved the path for Michael, then the era of Shaq, Kobe, and James. Now it is Luka and Shai. Every era drives the culture further so the future stars can burn hotter. With today's reach, look, I still remember legends like Dominique and that whole vintage crew, Julius Erving and the greats. They weren't bitter when MJ arrived and took the world by storm. Lastly, Candace explains why the front office must evolve, because this historic shift centers on the rookie. This defines the sport's destiny. The league is currently thriving, meaning it's time to talk bottom lines. Ultimately, it's a numbers game, and Candace recognizes it. That young star is a financial powerhouse. When you possess a great asset but lack eyes, having a magnet like her is a total miracle. It is undeniable. If they believe they hold power in future negotiations without their main attraction, her recent health scare was a harsh reality check. But recall my point about the Indiana faithful? That's a crucial detail. Look at this. The Indiana clash with the Sun last Friday pulled massive ratings. 851,000 people watched, setting a record as the top broadcast on that network this year. Even without their phenom on the floor, the Fever are pulling in a massive audience. Sure, they aren't peak superstar figures, but that misses the lesson. This proves the ripple effect. The fever is catching on in indie first, and eventually it'll transform the entire professional landscape. Patience is key. This level of societal transition doesn't just click into place, it is a marathon. Executed correctly, this builds the platform for the next phenom to skyrocket even higher. Currently, the sport is navigating the most vital expansion phase in its entire history. That requires welcoming newcomers, honoring the icon, and essentially ensuring her safety during play. The officiating crew must step up and maintain order. You cannot permit cheap shots to go unpunished. When voices like Candace demand respect, the entire culture finally has a chance to find its balance. Now, the true test remains. Will leadership adapt, or will their resentment toward her be their downfall? Refusing to embrace the star and her massive following could stunt their progress forever. If you've made it this far, comment a goat emoji, because you're a legend for staying tuned. Thanks for tuning in. See you next round.